Eskom has given South Africans some relief as rolling blackouts are suspended for the long weekend. The utility says improved performance of generating units and anticipated lower demand meant a short-term end to load shedding. But is the reality of no load shedding within reach? Energy expert Professor Mark Swilling will hopefully help us make sense of that or answer that question. Prof, how long is a piece of string? But there was a meeting this week that you were part of with the electricity minister and the JSC. Perhaps just tell us about that meeting and trying to understand the work that is also being done in the background to end load shedding.
Well, good morning. The meeting was primarily around the grid transmission system, not load shedding per se, but obviously the two are directly linked. The meeting took place at the JSE and included many government departments, development finance institutions, as well as the private sector. And it was really to discuss the financing arrangements that could be put in place to make sure that the grid is expanded rapidly in order to take on the new generation capacity that is needed in order to bring load shedding to an end. As you will know, at the end of last year at bid window 6, the amount of capacity that was supposed to be allocated was 4.2 gigawatts, but less than 1 was allocated. And that was because of constraints on the grid. So going forward, we have to put a lot more generation capacity on the grid, but there's not enough capacity on the grid in order to take on that additional capacity.
There is not enough capacity. Why, Prof?
Well, basically, if you're going to set up a renewable energy generation plant or a coal-fired power plant, you have to put electrons onto the grid in order for those electrons to be transmitted to the users. And that grid comprises power lines and substations. And if there isn't sufficient power lines and substations, you can't put additional electrons onto the grid in order to meet the needs of households and businesses. So that's a new constraint that has emerged. It's not part of the Energy Action Plan. But the Minister of Electricity wants to make it a priority.
That we are seeing no load shedding for this long weekend, that too has been met with some suspicion from some sectors of society. To your knowledge, what does it speak to really?
What it speaks to is what we've had for now a number of years, which is uncertainty. So no Eskom manager or the Minister of Electricity can wake up tomorrow morning and predict with absolute certainty what is going to happen that day. So the state of our electricity, of our power stations is such that they have been so badly managed as well as corrupted and sabotaged that they are very unstable. And so you can take certain machines off to maintain them and fix them up and even rehabilitate them. But when you put them back onto the grid, you don't really know how long that is going to last. At the same time, there are other machines that are supposed to be taking up the slack, and they might not be performing well, and they just switch off. They can trip in a moment's notice. So we live in a condition of high levels of uncertainty. So when people have a long weekend with electricity, they should be grateful because it's not some conspiracy. It's just that fortunately, some of the plans that Eskom has made are panning out in terms of the balance between planned and unplanned maintenance.
Thank you so much, Prof, for your time this afternoon or this morning. Professor Mark Swilling.